Hello guys and welcome to the TeemTHE YouTube channel. Today I wanted to I wanted to show you guys off a little bit of my collection that I've been working on. The collection that I like to work on is rebuilding old meta decks, so the best decks from every timeline, and I like to just basically rebuild them. So I wanted to showcase this to you. This is the 2002 Summon Skull Beatdown. This is the first meta deck to ever exist, so it's a pretty cool thing to look at. Fortunately, mine is not the holographic Summon Skull. This is just the Starter Deck Yugi one. But either way, let's go ahead and get into it just as a retro deck profile. So, what do we have? We have one Summon Skull. We have our three beaters of the deck, the three Lajin, the mystical genies of the lamp. This was like the buffest dude in the set for the longest time. I believe, just for context, this deck was Legend of Blue Eyes, Metal Raiders, Starter Deck Yugi, and Starter Deck Kaiba, and that's all that really existed. So the card pool is very small. You have the other big beater, which is Dark Elf. Dark Elf, of course, not as good as Lajin because she does cost 1,000 of your life points in order to attack. These are both MRD. None of them are first ed, but that's not really that big as far as my collection is concerned. I just wanted to rebuild the actual pieces of the deck. Mainly with Dark Elf, you just want to sit on her when you're playing the deck. You don't really want to attack because life points matter a whole lot more in this format. Then you have your 1/7 colored fish. This, of course, was the just another basic beater, same as Lajin. Then you have the other beater, Muka Muka. This is a first ed from Metal Raiders. It's a pretty cool card. It's in pretty decent condition too. And basically this card just gains the attack and defense, 300 points for each card in your hand. So this is a really good opener, especially because back in the old days, in the old format, you drew on your very first turn, so you would still have, if you just summoned this and passed, you would be sitting on a 2100 monster, and realistically no monsters of that format could really get over that if it's just sitting at 2100. Then you have Wall of Illusion. This card is super powerful. This is a first ed from Starter Deck Yugi. So it's like really old. I've probably had one of my own a long time ago until I re-got this one. Finding a first ed though is actually pretty rare. But yeah, Wall of Illusion. This was one of your big defenses. Again, there really weren't that many good ways to remove monsters except through battle, and the fact that she had 1850 means that she could handle Lajin, and also it's just a really good card for the format. Then you have your Giant Soldier of Stone. This is from Legend of Blue Eyes. Fortunately, it's not first ed, but still, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see it in a rare form anyway. This card is, this card can do amazing things. It can attack the moon and drain your opponent if you ever find yourself in a pinch full of water monsters. Then you have Mask of Darkness. This flip effect monsters were very rare. I think at the time you had like Armed Ninja, Maneater Bug, which is the next card, Magician of Faith, and Mask of Darkness. So, and the Trap Master. That was another big one. But for this deck, they used just the Mask of Darkness to let you recycle some trap cards. Then you have Maneater Bug. Maneater Bug being, of course, one of the very few effect monsters when at the very beginning of the game. So it's pretty cool. Still fun to see on Duel Links every now and then. Then you have two Magician of Faith. Magician of Faith, of course, was very powerful for such a long time, letting you recycle your spell cards. She was on the forbidden list for forever, even when people thought that, she could come back. Nowadays, she doesn't really do much, but she's still just one of those respected cards. Then, back in this format, there was a lot of removal, so like Dark Hole, Regeki, all that stuff was legal, so you needed floaters, so you had things like your Witch of the Black Forest, And then you also had your 2 pieces of Sangan. I don't think any of these are... No, these are like the newer versions of them. Hopefully I'll get some... hopefully I'll get some of the original copies of them. I'd like to add them for the collection, but for now, I think these will suffice. Then, this is a white magical hat. It's not first ed, but it is from Metal Raider. This introduced the idea of like hand control. People started to realize that, you know, if you could drain your opponent of resources, that it was a highly effective thing to do. So white magical hat was, I think, a good starting point for what was the next big deck of the format, which was hand destruction or hand control. And of course, you have the opposite of him. Instead of draining your opponent of resources, you have a card like Mass Sorcerer to gain yourself some more resources. So I think this really opened up how players thought about the game and resource management and things like that. Because before you would just play whatever you wanted, but now people were starting to see like, you know, draining resources was a quite effective thing, and even to this day we still play by that kind of by modern format. We just try to negate everything. So this of course was forever banned. This is Raigeki, a great card. It just destroys all monsters on your opponent's side of the field. There's no drawbacks to it. It's just one of those power cards. I believe the next 5 cards in this list right here are the power 5. So you have Raigeki, Pot of Greed, of course banned, never coming back ever again. Side Pot of Greed. Then you have Dark Hole, destroying all monsters on the field. Then you have Change of Heart. I love the artwork on this card. I wish it would come back just because I would like to draw it every once in a while, but fortunately, top decking this card can OTK yourself, or you can get OTK'd. You can get sacked really hard by people who just top deck Change of Heart. It's too good, like by modern standards. I don't think it should ever come back, but it's just really nice to look at. Then you have Monster Reborn. I once pulled a first ed LOB Monster Reborn, but then I sold it when I was a young lad, and I didn't actually know the true value of it. So I'm sad. Hopefully I'll get a actual first ed LOB Monster Reborn again, but until then, this will suffice. Then Metal Raiders, I think, introduced the Heavy Storm. So you have 2 of them, 2 copies of Heavy Storm. Very strong card. Then you have Swords of Revealing Light. This has always been a pretty cool card. Just, you know, historically, if you watch the actual TV show, Swords of Revealing Light is just one of those iconic cards. Back in that format, though, it was more like just a draw 3, unless your opponent played Dispel or Heavy Storm. They drew into it. Then you had 3 copies of Fissure. This was your monster removal. This is a pretty good way of getting rid of your opponent. Of course, you had to play around it because you couldn't always wipe out the monster that you wanted to. So you had to, of course, find ways to destroy the weaker monsters, and then you can activate this. But it's a pretty cool card. It's a fun card to look at. I really like the artwork on it. This is a Last Will from Starter Deck Yugi. This card will never come back. It's too good. You can summon any monster from your deck with less than 1,500 attack points. There's no drawback, so yeah, this card will never come back. Then you have Mirror Force. Metal Raiders introduced us to Mirror Force. Mine's is not from Metal Raiders, since common ones are really easy to get. I put them in for this collection. So yeah, so here's my Mirror Force. This was the Raigeki of your opponent's turn. It was one of the really cool cards to watch Yugi do in the anime. Then you had 3 Trap Holes. I believe Trap Holes are from Legend of Blue Eyes. I think mine are like a combination. Yeah, I have one from Starter Deck Kaiba and Starter Deck Yugi, and then I'm not really sure what this one's from. But yeah, so Trap Hole was like a staple 3 of back in the day, just because it was your form of monster removal. That's when you started saying, you know, you activated my trap card. And then of course Waboku. I'm going to be honest, when I was a kid, I had no idea what this card did. I thought it was lame. But in retrospect, once we started understanding it, I think when Gladiator Beast came out, that's when I actually started to understand what this card did. It's actually a pretty cool card, so I can see why it was played at 3. It basically prevented you from losing the duel. And last but not least, a Robin Goblin. This, I believe, came out in starter deck. One of the starter decks. I don't think it was Yugi or Kaiba. But this, again, gave us the introduction to the idea of hand control. So that is the Summon Skull Beatdown. And just to top things off, we're going to go ahead and shuffle and just do an example of, how these retro decks would play. And we're going to just see some test hands just for the fun of it. This was the 2002 format, when all of us really had no idea what we were doing. And beautiful. And then you get to draw for turn. Really cool. And then just one more. Beautiful. You can wreck your opponent with setting the Robin Goblin. And then just probably set this and let your opponent go. So that way when it's their turn, you get rid of their monster, you can attack, and hit him with the Robin Goblin. Alright guys, that's it for this deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed looking at these type of retro decks. I think they're really cool to look at, really cool for the collection of just cards to view. That's it for now, and I hope you guys will tune in for the next episode.